Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We are back on the page. It's been a minute. I know, it's been a minute. Cheers. Cheers. Today I have a wonderful, man, a wonderful little 1-2 for us. First things first, how am I feeling? As you can see, I'm feeling good. I got the jazz in the background. I am feeling grateful. There's so many things to be grateful for. I am feeling grateful. I was just reflecting on so many things, but I was also looking at my calendar and I'm like, oh my gosh, my birthday is next week. And it's something about spring, about Aries season that already brings this renewal type of energy where everything starts to feel so heightened and good, and I get to feeling heightened and good. So I was already kind of in an energy where I think it really didn't matter that my birthday was coming up. I'm already feeling good. I'm feeling like it's my season. I'm feeling like it's time. So I was sitting there, I was like, oh my God, it's time. Like, it's time. And also thinking about the fact that I'm coming on 27 years of life and reflecting on all the things that I've did in this life. And I started thinking about the book, y'all, the book. If you don't know, I feel like a lot of people are new to this YouTube thing, but The Woman in the Garden is the new rebranding of the OG YouTube channel, which was I Am All That You Are. And that's where the book came from. I Am All That You Are. And it was a whole thing, y'all. Maybe I'll one day unarchive some of them videos so that y'all can really get into some of the stuff that I was talking about. But me and my journey as a writer, as a poet, kind of unfolded here in this space in a much more beautiful way, which kind of was like evolving into me writing my book. And the book is now, I think, 7 years old. 7 years old. My baby didn't really get enough celebration of time, but we gon' do something about that, okay? Because I think that it is deserving of celebrating, and it's deserving of looking at with a new eye, with a new lens. And it's not necessarily meaning that I want to change anything, but it's definitely kind of me looking at it with the way that I've grown in my craft, the way that I've grown in honing and trusting in my voice, and looking at what I was saying and now seeing like, oh, okay, I see where we could take this deeper. Because I really see what needs to be said here. So today I want to share some poems that are in alignment with what I want us to kind of look at and what I want us to kind of write from today. Because we will be writing today. Okay, we will be writing. We're only going to write for 10 minutes. I know we usually do our 15-minute thing. Today we're only writing for 10 minutes. But I want to read some poems from I Am All That You Are. This is my Truth Poems and Papers. It is still on Amazon, but I got it on hand, y'all. So get it from me. Okay, if you need that, come get that from me personally. But I'll be reading some poems from the OG book today. We'll be writing, building and pivoting from what we're looking at. And what we'll be talking about today, or reflecting on, writing on, talking about, is finding the language to express ourselves through presence, through the small moments that we've enjoyed throughout our life that have kind of given us a deeper feeling, a deeper knowing, a deeper understanding of what's going on, right? And how we can use that to help us find the language and hone the language and develop that language to express and cultivate ourselves in our writing and in our lives, in our communication, and how we telling people what we need and when we need it and how. Okay? All right. So I've pre-picked a few poems that I want to read. This first one is, I'm debating if I want to get into the philosophy behind finding language first or if I want to read first. I'm going to read first, and then after I read, I'm going to break it down, and we're going to get into the context of what we're talking about, right? Okay. So this poem is called In the Shadows. Context. When I remember when I wrote this poem, I was trying to figure out how to get into erotic poetry, how to get into writing from a place of pleasure and desire, and not necessarily lust, but definitely a more erotic space of being embodied, right? And experiencing the body, experiencing other bodies. So this poem is called In the Shadows. It's a little erotic, but it is a retelling of me experiencing my own shadow. So here we go. From the shadow, I watch you. I tried to remember your body. As your moves guide me into your trance, I try to trace your figure with the peaks of my fingers, but your essence is far beyond my reach. In the shadows, you sway. Hips wrestling with the darkness, cutting your eyes across your shoulders, I remind myself that this is not a dream, though you are everything that I have ever dreamed of. And this, my greatest fantasy. In the shadows, I am almost lost to speech, speechless. From the shadows, you have captured me, elevated my mind, transformed my energy with yours, without words, without touch. I return to watching you dance as you stir, as you become, as you come. Then together we fold into each other's arms, eternal again, quivering with warmth. Here, she says, I am safe. Let me be here with you in the shadows. Period. After I wrote that, I was like, okay, you might have a little something in there. You might have a little something. I think it was coming from a place of me. If you were at the last on the page, I talked a little bit about experimentation and, trying to kind of play with the ways that we approach things. And I wanted to play with the way that I approach, like I said, erotic poetry. I was also coming from a place where I was used to writing a lot of love poems. So I was like, okay, that's cute, but like there's more to explore here that I really want to get into, that I really want to play with, that you can play with poetry, with creative writing, with expressing yourself through writing. So today, like I said, we'll be getting a little bit into how to find that language, how to be able to really use our experiences to influence the way that we express ourselves in these very poetic and embodied ways. I have a few points that I broke down, and then, like I said, I'm going to use the poem to kind of make it make sense, okay? First things first, all right. I want you to kind of pay attention to how in the poem, we in the shadows, right? Now, you don't know if we in the shadows, like in the dark, or you don't know if, like I said, I'm explaining to you my own experience of my own shadow, right? It's a play on words. It's a play on the experience. It's a play on the mind for you to kind of play with it and decide what you want it to mean for you. Now, the thing with that I want us to really understand and finding the language and looking at, like I said, our own personal experiences and where these things show up in how we can craft the language of expressing ourselves. Presence being in the moment, being grounded in, like we always talk about, the senses, the somatics, the five, what you can see, what you can smell, what you can touch, what you can taste, what you can feel. Presence. When we are in a state of allowing ourselves to really allow not just language to be the first thing that we go to name what we're experiencing, but when we go to the feeling first to understand what we're experiencing, right? When we go to the feeling first to allow ourselves to let that inform what words we go to. Let me show you visuals, because I'll be talking, but I got visuals, right? Me and emotions. This is an emotion wheel. I come from a background where my family is used to expressing themselves in very explosive, aggressive, or just limited ways in terms of our emotional ability, our our emotional intelligence and our ability to understand what we're feeling and put words to it, right? Very limited vocabulary. As I grew older, I'm like, okay, I'm understanding that when people are asking me, oh, how did it feel when you did XYZ? How did it feel when you went XYZ? How did it feel? I immediately go to a place of logic, right? I'm explaining all of these things that have nothing to do with the embodied experience of how it felt being present. Maybe I wasn't present. That's the T. But being present in that experience and understanding what it felt like. Again, going back to the senses: smell, touch, taste, see, feel. What was it like? I had to expand my language and my ability to articulate the feeling. And the thing about, again, we're on number one. The thing about language and sometimes working with, for example, if you speak the English language is a very limited tongue to be able to express sometimes experiences that have more depth or that are more complex, right? And so when we are trying to find the language, sometimes we jump to what is familiar to us. But sometimes that may not be the word that fully embodies the depth of what you're trying to communicate, or essentially what you're experiencing. And so when we reach for things, again, the emotion wheel, when we reach for things that allow us to expand our language, to expand what we can reach for as we're trying to translate these experiences, then that allows us to be able to be like, oh, okay, like when I'm writing my poetry or when I'm communicating to people what it felt like for me to have this very embodied experience, I can speak from an embodied place. I can speak with words that allow me to fully communicate what it is that I experience so that they can share that experience with me. And I think that that's when we get into these, very poetic devices like imagery and metaphors and things that allow you to either compare it to something that other people have a connection to, that they're familiar with, or when you're able to really paint the picture, imagery, when you're able to take them there, to help them ground them in the moment through the senses, through what it feels like, right? Sometimes we have to, like I said, reach for the feeling first, but in reaching for the feeling, before we reach for the word, there's some expansion that may be needed. So I know that was a lot. I'm going to just say that was number one, reaching for the feeling before we reach for the words. Okay? Reach for the feeling. Reach for understanding. Okay, what is it that I'm feeling exactly? Am I feeling it? Am I present enough to really experience it to begin with? And then as you're starting to understand, okay, I'm in it, I'm knowing what it's feeling like. Now let me kind of try to understand if I even have what I need to reach for to make this make sense. Number two. Oh, and this is my favorite one, because as I was looking at, so the second chapter of the book, there's only 2 chapters of the book. Okay? I made it simple. The second chapter of the book is called Who Are My People? And I was very intentional about dedicating it to my people, Black people. But from a position where I think, I call myself a cultural critic, because I feel like my lived experience can very much inform my ability to influence culture, but to also kind of critique what's working and what's not. What's like aiding in our progression forward and what's not. So the second chapter of the book is not only a question of who are my people so that other people can understand who I come from, where I come from, but also a question to my people of like, who are we? Do we understand what we're struggling for? Do we understand where we come from? Do we understand what we're fighting for? Number 2 is lineage and language. Who do you come from? What is the language that you speak? Where you come from? What is the language that you speak that helps the people where you come from understand what the fuck you talking about? Pardon my French, but sometimes I gotta say it because I know who I'm talking to. But language. Now, this is what I love about being Black, and this is what I love about the way that I wrote this book also, because poetry allows you to tap into so many devices and forms in order to be able to articulate a message, right? So the first poem is a remaking of Hey Black Child, Do You Know Who You Are? And I know it really depends on who you are as a black person in terms of your connection to this poem, but it's an OG poem in the black literal tradition that is a retelling of black, or is a empowerment and an affirmation to black kids, telling them like, do you know who you are, and kind of recounting to them, some things that they should be prideful of, because as black kids we're taught so many things that kind of tell us that we're nobody, that we have no history, that we come from nothing, right? So this poem, I know for me as a black kid, was one of those pieces of literature that was affirming to me that I come from a long lineage of people who have value, who have meaning, who have contributed immeasurable things to this world, okay? Period. So that was my remaking of that. And that was also me kind of trying to reach into my people in a place that I know has an emotional connection, that I know has a familiar connection in relationship to our identity, like in relationship to, again, like I said, what we've been taught, who we are versus who we really are. Okay? Finding the language in other forms, because there's so many ways that I could have conveyed this very same message, right? There's so many ways that I could have tried to reach into their past and all of the many things that are significant to what it means to being a black person, but it's also where you reach. It's also like, for black people, food, music, art, ebonics, how we talk to each other. Right now I'm reading, and y'all know I go on these tangents, so I'm about to go on a tangent. Right now, I just wrapped up Their Eyes Was Watching God, Zora Neale Hurston at the Analog Dope Book Club, and I'm looking for the book. Excuse me. But what I love about this book, because y'all know I'm going to always bring a book into this conversation. What I love about this book, what I love about Zora Neale Hurston as an anthropologist, is she was very intentional about preserving the language of black people in this time in this book. Point. I'm gonna just read you a little excerpt that kind of really conveys exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is two characters talking to each other, right? So one character says, "Maybe so, Janie. Still and all, I'd love to experience it for just 1 year. It looked like he been to me from where I'm at. I reckon so. But anyhow, Janie, you look careful about this selling out and going off with strange men. Look what happened to Annie Tyler. Took what little she had and went off to Tampa with that boy they call Hooflung. Is something to think about. It sure is. Still, I ain't Miss Tyler, and T-Cake ain't no Hooflung, and he ain't no stranger to me. We's just as good as married already. But I ain't putting it in the street. I'm telling you." And I know that was kind of hard to understand, which is why it takes a few times of rereading. It takes a few times of connecting the dots between what we've heard, what we've been around, who we've been around, and what she's saying. The context of what is being had in the conversation. Now, I'm going to translate it for you. They basically having a conversation, and one person's telling her, like, girl, don't just be out here dealing with these men just any kind of way. Remember what happened to the last girl we saw who ended up in this same situation that you're in right now. Remember what happened to her? Yeah, don't end up like her. And she like, well, I'm not going to end up like her. And I'm also not telling this to everybody. I'm just telling this to you. Right? That's basically the conversation that they having. But it's said in a vernacular that is so, like I said, grounded in the people, grounded in the language of the people. Zora understands that this is a book that black people are probably going to be able to be familiar with, because this is the language that we speak. I don't think she was too concerned about anybody else who don't really speak our language having a hard, like, it's an art. It's an art form. It's a book. If you are really invested in understanding the culture, understanding the people, understanding the language, then you can take some time. You can spend some time studying it, rereading it, trying to understanding it, connecting it with the other people that you know around you. But it's not really for people who are not familiar. You understand what I'm saying? Number two, tapping into your language, your lineage. Where do you come from? What is the language that you speak, and how can you communicate in a way that allows you to say what you need to say without all the extra fluff, without all the extra trying to make it make sense and trying to make it in a way to where it's performative. It's politically correct. It's right. There is a way to be respectful to all people, so that you're not causing harm in what you're communicating and how you're communicating yourself and how you're expressing yourself. Yeah, of course, we don't ever want to just be out here speaking reckless, and at the same time, you want to ground your expression of yourself, your expression of your truth in a language that allows you to readily access what you need to say, how you need to say it, so that people can understand you. For Black people, and I'll speak for myself as a Black person, code switching, I think, is something that when I'm around certain people, it is like a mask that I wear. Because when I code switch, not only am I taking myself out of my native tongue, I'm also taking myself out of my native expression. And when I say that, I'm talking about when I communicate, as y'all might see, I use a lot of hands. I use a lot of verbal, like, slurs. I might swear. That is a part of my native expression. How I feel comfortable in expressing myself. How I feel passionate and, all of that. That is something that I sometimes have to mask when I'm in certain spaces. But as you can see, it also creates a mask over me. It also creates a mask over people getting to experience me and my authentic expression. And I want us to kind of think about how that can sometimes show up in everything, especially for Black people, for people of color, for people who have to show up in this double consciousness space of we showing up one way in one space and we showing up in another way when we can come home and we around our people. Sometimes we don't even understand that it's just blurring. The lines are blurred. And how we're expressing ourselves, and not only again in our writing and in our craft, but also in our relationships and how we're communicating with people. Sometimes we are still masked up. We are still not allowing ourselves to fully communicate and articulate in a way that is authentic to how we express ourselves, but also authentic to how the people around us express themselves, and in a way that allows them to easily reach us, easily be able to connect with us, and easily be able to understand us, right? I know that was loaded. I'm gonna take a minute to refill my tea. But when it comes to Black people, it's so much to understand in the ways that we have had to resist in reclaiming self, but also all the articulations and expressions of self. Like, we were stripped of our native languages. We were literally stripped of the tongues that we had long cultivated over generations. And coming here to the States, we've been able to adapt new tongues and new ways of communicating with each other. But even that has been something that, without the proper protections, we've still had to find other ways to communicate with each other. And so I think that that's where, like I was saying, sometimes we have to transcend that boundary of language and allow ourselves to just get into different forms, whether that be poetry, whether that be music, whether that be art, whether that be food, whether that be dance, whether that be dressing. Like, we be doing it all. But it is also the ways that we communicate with ourselves and with each other, right? The ways that we affirm in ourselves, this is who I am, this is me, this is a part of what makes me me. And then how we also affirm to each other, like, yeah, we in this together. I see me in you. I see me in the way that you do you. I see you in the way that I do me. And I think that that's also where the sense of community comes from, right? As we start to lean more into pulling from where we come from and what we come from. It's it's the link that connects us all. So naturally, it starts to bring us all back together, which is what we want. That's what I want. That's what I want. I see some comments coming up, but I don't know how to. I don't know how to make them come back up so I can read them. Okay, maybe I'll get to read them later, but I love you. I think that's Monica. I love you, Monica. But yeah, that was number 2, y'all. Okay, so just recap. How long we been on here? 25 minutes? Okay, cool. We got time. Recap. How to find language. Number 1, listening. Listening more than we reach for the word, right? Listening for the feeling the feeling more than we reach for the word first. And then as we're understanding the feeling, expanding our language so that we can reach for more than what's familiar. Number 2, now we're still leaning into what's familiar. I know. I'm going to stretch you always because it's a Sankofa thing, baby. I want you to look back to look forward, right? So now we looking forward. We looking forward, now we looking back. I should have reversed those, but okay. Number 1, listening before naming. Number 2, lineage and language. Pulling from the language that allows you to be able to express yourself from a place that's authentic. And that also allows you to be able to express yourself to other people in a way that they can connect with you, right? Music, art, transcending forms, transcending language in the ways that you express yourself. Number 3, oh, my handwriting be getting, okay. Ooh, and I think I kind of already talked about this, but we'll touch on it a little bit more. Number 3, trusting what doesn't translate, right? Because when I was talking about how English is one of those languages that doesn't always give us that depth to say what we need to say. Sometimes we be trying to say it, we be like, but I don't got the words. Like, sometimes even when we're looking to expand our vocabulary in a language that's still very limited, we have to not internalize that as us. You see what I'm saying? It's hard to articulate, but we have to not internalize it as a boundary that we have to place on ourselves, right? Because we cannot say something in a certain way does not mean that it cannot still be communicated or that it cannot still be expressed, right? Ooh, you see? What I want us to understand that, and this goes back to the last point, writing in a language that you understand. Writing in a language that other people around you can understand. And sometimes that's where we do have to pull from what we know and what we come from. But again, if that's limited, we have to expand that so that we're connecting with what the people around us is connecting with, so that we are able to communicate in a language that's accessible for what the people around us are communicating in. Again, so the thing with English is it's a colonized language, right? It comes from so many other different languages. And as we start to also understand our native way of communicating and why we as people still take this language and turn it into something else that allows us to communicate, is because of our own, it's just the way that we are set up. Like, and so a few languages that I've been attracted to that have allowed me to be able to express depth and complexity a little bit more: Arabic, Spanish, Mandarin. These are all languages that, as you can see, have a lot more history to them. They have a lot more depth already. They have a lot more. They're ancient. Like, they've been around. They're not new to this. But I think what also informs these languages is lived experience, is life, is being able to, again, going back to number 1, being able to be in it a little bit longer before we just reaching for the first word to name the experience. These are languages that come from people who have not only been here long periods of time, but they've also experienced enough life to be able to inform the way that they express that life, the express that lived experience. So these are languages that have allowed me, like, I think I came upon Arabic and in the Rumi poet, I mean the poet Rumi, and he's Persian, but in some of his poetry, he's really big on writing poems that are like love poems to God, to his God, and he is in like a erotic romantic relationship with God, and it's queer, and in his poetry he uses Arabic to kind of really articulate the depth of that relationship, because that's hard to explain in the English language, I'm sure, sometimes to people who have a very limited understanding of what God is to begin with, spirituality, religion. He's using a language that already is very like, man, y'all. Look up the poet Rumi and you'll be able to understand, because it's going to stretch you a little bit, even in terms of your familiarity with love and romance, and the ways that you are able to articulate your affections and your desires. Like, he really made me have to think a little bit deeper in terms of the ways that I was articulating my love for people, because I'm like, wow, you really are like just really beautiful, beautiful stuff. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. I didn't speak Arabic when I was exposed to his poetry. I'm not Persian. This is not native or familiar to me, but because of the depth of the experience, because he's speaking in the language that he understands, I'm now able to connect to a deeper level of understanding and experience in my own experience. And I'm able to take that and connect it to other parts of what I got going on, and deepen it even further. So yeah, number 1, listening before naming. Number 2, lineage and language. Number 3, trusting what doesn't translate. Don't put that boundary on yourself that you're not now able to communicate or express what you have to express, because there's a limit to the language. There's a boundary on how things are expressed in this world, in this way. You can still get it out. I'm going to need you to find another way. I'm going to need you to find another tongue. I'm going to need you to find another something, another form, something. But it needs to get out. I need you to get it out. Okay, number 4. And this one is probably going to take me on a tangent, so I'm not going to go too long. But I want you to really, and this goes back to presence. When you spend time in nature, nature teaches, baby. Okay? And I want to leave it there, but I feel like I might need to go a little bit deeper. So just let me take a sip. Okay. Presence, right? Now, we got this whole thing where people are like, go touch grass, go touch grass, right? Okay, but like, people are outside touching grass and they're still not really feeling or connecting to anything that people are wanting them to feel and connect to. So I'm going to take it a little bit deeper and help it make a little bit more sense. Nature is one of them things that is intimately connected to us, but like more of the internal workings of what we got going on, right? So everything that we see around us is also everything that's happening inside of us. What helps us be able to understand not only the physical workings, but also some of the more abstract spiritual stuff that's happening in nature, like planting a seed and the seed cultivating and growing, and all the stuff that we can't see that's happening underground before the plant even comes up, and then all of the stuff that's still happening inside the plant that we still don't see, right? But that we see. That is the way that nature can kind of teach us and inform us and help us understand not only, like I said, the inner workings of the physical, but also the metaphorical ways that we can apply watching a plant grow to watching ourselves plant a seed inside of us and watching that grow. Now, applying this to language, communicating. When we are sitting in, okay, you sitting in the park, right? You outside, you sitting, you grounding, you doing whatever you doing. You're noticing that maybe the trees are, and it's so hard to explain because it always shows up for me personally in so many different ways. Like, I'm right now in a space where I'm trying to learn how to listen to the trees for real, how to become familiar with different plants as an herbalist, especially because I noticed that in my herbal practice, certain plants call to me. Certain plants have a language that they speak, especially in relationship to, and this is where it gets a little complex, the frequency that you're in, the state that you're in, should I say, your state of being, right? Certain plants, certain energies are able to communicate with you, or you're more receptive to that communication based on certain states of being. So, like I said, it's gonna take me on a tangent. It's gonna take me. I'm trying not to go. But I'm gonna just round it back and say presence in nature. Again, there's this book that I have. It's called The Garden Within, and it gives a really good analogy, which is, I think, kind of where the inspiration for The Woman in the Garden came from. Because as I was looking at this analogy of self-becoming and self-growing and the ways that we learn to articulate what is in our hearts and cultivate what is in our hearts and really be able to share that with the people around us, is in this comparison to the garden. And I want you to look into that book. Let me see. I hope it's closed. There you go. I'm like, I hope it's closed, because, y'all, it's so many books. And they be everywhere. But here it go. The Garden Within by Dr. Anita Phillips. And I found this on the street. Okay? I found this on the street. Outside of, I think it was the Octavia bookstore in LA. Yeah, but just allowing nature to teach, allowing, the presence that we can have with the things around us. Again, that's where it deepens. Number one, that listening before we name. Presence is really important in helping us really just be in the experience, so that we can know what we're naming, so that we can know, again, what it even is that we're experiencing. And like I said, what I love about nature is the more that you start to spend time with these different elements, me as an herbalist, the more that I spend time with these plants, my body starts to develop a relationship with them where it's like a language that they speak. And that starts to also inform, I think, the way that I show up in my writing, but also the way that I show up in maybe even communicating with other people, because I know what I be feeling. I know what I be thinking. I know what I be wanting to say. And I think in honing that knowing in my relationship with these plants, and honing that knowing, that trust in my relationship with nature, it also allows me to hone that knowing and that trust in my communication, in my writing, in my craft, and not need to feel like everything needs to be so perfect all the time, right? And I think that takes us into number 5, because number 5 is, willing to say it bad, willing to write bad, willing to just do it bad. Like, it's not going to be perfect at first, but it's so important to call it in rough, to call it in unclear, to call it in just as it is, and then to trust. Again, that's where that trust comes back. Trusting yourself to be able to refine for clarity, trusting yourself to be able to know what to take, and to know what it was like, oh, okay, like, I heard that, but like, maybe I don't need to take that all the way. Like, I don't need that all the way. I just need that little piece, right? So being willing to write it bad, being willing to say it imperfect, being willing to be clear sometimes, being willing to just do it rough. And a perfect example for this, which I know kind of goes outside of the scope of writing a little bit, but well, no, it doesn't, because in this book, I did it a lot. But in my writing, in my relationships, and I'll go back to the book, because in this book, especially, like I told y'all, in the chapter, Who Are My People, I was very critical of naming things that I think we don't talk about enough in the Black community. And I think that we really need to be intentional about looking at, witnessing, so that we can heal it and move forward. And I talked about sexual trauma in the book. I talked about my relationship to the women figures in my book. I talked about that concept of being fast as a young woman, a young Black girl. I talked about so many things, but I think the one that, really I struggled with the most to articulate was, there's a poem, I think it's called Home Reimagined, where I'm talking about the different home spaces that I've had throughout my life, and the ways that I've been able to exist in myself in these spaces. So I'm talking about what it was like being me growing up in my mama house, and what it was like being me going to my grandma house, and all of the ways that they made spaces for parts of me, but not all of me. And I was so self-conscious about not only writing that, but making that public, because not only is it a criticism of them, and I guess, they would consider their parenting or whatever, but it was also a criticism of the ways that they were or were not able to make space for all of me, and I guess a critique of their ability to love. And that is a really huge, that's a really huge critique. That for me, I feel like, to look at them and say, well, yes, you said you love me, but still looking at what it took to love all of me, I feel like you were not fully equipped. And naming that, saying that, putting that out loud in front of everybody else to witness that, I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted it to not be too harsh. I wanted it to not be too critical, but it needed to be said. Very simply, it needed to be said. And I think it needed to be said exactly how I said it, because in them being able to receive it, I think that they have learned how to really hold space for all of me. I think that it's been a loving correction in a way for them to be able to hear it not from me, but to hear it from me, per se. And even still, I think it was in, going back to maybe number 1, 2, or 3, it was in a language that they were able to understand. It was not too perfected. It was not performative. It was, down to earth. Like, yeah, I went to my grandma's house and she would do all of these things to remind me that I'm powerful, that I'm loved, that I'm beautiful. And at the same time, when my queerness came into a picture, that became a thing of like, oh, well, now I have to love you hard. Now I have to love you in violence. Now I have to, which for me didn't translate to love all the time. So in naming that and recognizing that, I also knew that there was no perfect way to say that. There was no picture perfect way to say that. It just needed to be said. And I wrote it. And another thing with this book is, like I said, it's been 7 years. And I have not released a re-edited version of anything. Not the cover. This is the OG Canva cover. A lot of the poems, actually all of the poems, none of the poems have been re-edited, and I could have gone back and fixed, or, tried to make it more palatable, make it so that it was more able to reach more people. But I feel like it reached exactly who it needed to reach. And I feel like it got into the hands of every single person it needed to get into. And it still is. Like, it still reaches all the people that it needs to reach. So I don't feel like it needs any correction. I don't. And like I said, when I published the book, I was trusting in the fact that I said what I need to say, and that's how I needed to say it. And that was that. Okay? And I think that's our last point, number 5. Number 5, trusting in the refinement. Yeah, just say that shit. Just say it. Just say it. Which I think that we've already talked about in a few previous on the page sessions, is, not I think it was the silencing concept, when we talked about all the ways that we try to refine what we have to say so that we are not rubbing people the wrong way, or, making people feel a way. And again, removing some of that responsibility from ourselves so that we can hold more space for the parts of ourselves that need to be held, essentially. And that's what I really want us to kind of think about as we go into writing for the next 10 minutes. And then as we also move forward in our conversations and in our practice, is the ways that we're building a relationship with words, not just to write, but to be able to express and communicate ourselves, to be able to create an understanding of ourselves for people, so that we don't feel the need to constantly have to prove and over explain. And no, express yourself, articulate yourself the way that you feel the first time, so that people know where you stand, so that people know where you at. And I think that that's what also helps us be able to attract the people that are for us, because when we are speaking our truths, when we are expressing ourselves, showing up in authenticity, period, whether it's in our writing or in our relationships or whatever, that is when people are able to see that and be like, you know what, I like her, I like them, I like that. And that is when you draw in the ones that are for you. And it's also probably where you repel the ones that are not. So, like we talked about today, with attention and presence, there is so much to be received in honing and crafting the language that we use to express exactly what it is that's inside of us that's waiting to be expressed. I've spent a lot of time myself keeping stuff in, suppressing stuff, feeling like what I have to say either does not matter or is not going to add to the peace of the situation, right? But also understanding that sometimes it is my responsibility to not keep the peace. It is my responsibility to hold people accountable for either the harm being caused or the ways that they can show up better in relationship to what they saying they want to do. Because if you say that you love me, you care about me, and you want to be in community with me, then let me show you, teach you, tell you what that needs to look like. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being more of an outspoken advocate for myself and not only my relationships, but in my craft and my work, so that people know exactly how to remember me. Yeah, I don't need nobody to tell that story for me. I'm really ready, willing, and able to tell it. So I want you to be just as equipped. Um, and let me see. I think there's one final point that I have here. Ooh, okay. I wrote, your job is to learn the nature of language. Your job is to learn the nature of language, your language, and not to dominate it by rules of what needs to make sense, right? So this is building off of the concept of using as many forms as you need to express yourself, communicating in a language that is accessible to you, but also a language that allows you to be able to communicate and reach other people. And then also taking it a step further and expanding yourself and the people around you by pulling on things that allow you to reach beyond the familiar. Got it? Cool. Aim to connect, aim to express. Let's write. All right, so our prompt today is less of a question and more of like a guided meditation, because I kind of really wanted to take us through that. We have exactly 10 minutes on the clock to write, so I'm not going to do too much talking. We going to write, and that's going to be that. So let me get our timer up. I'm going to share the prompt. All right, I got the timer set for 10 minutes, 30 seconds. Our prompt. Think of a moment where you were just present, held by something simple, a meal, a cup of tea, a laugh that came from somewhere deep, sunlight, fresh air, something simple, right? So think of a moment where you were just present, held by something simple. In this moment, you were not surviving or overcoming anything. You were simply in it. And that was enough. Joy on its own terms, pleasure as the subject. As small as it may be, I want you to let this moment surround you, and I want you to become immersed in it. We're going to write for 10 minutes on this moment, simple moment, present moment. Doesn't have to be anything big at all. I want you to think of something really small. Like I said, a meal, a cup of tea, taking in a deep breath of fresh air. Like, think of a moment where you really felt present. And I want you to write from that moment. Now, I want you to specifically pull on them 5 senses. Taste, touch, smell, sight, hear. Oh, that's the one I be missing in. Hear. What can you hear? What can you feel? What can you taste? What can you see? What can you smell? All right? So we're going to write for 10 minutes. And then we'll close out. And I'm going to turn the jazz up because I like that. I like that. Think of a moment where you were just present, held by something simple. write about it from the five senses. Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to be so abrupt. I was writing. That was like 10 minutes and 30 seconds or something. But yeah, y'all. Cheers. So I hope you got to really get into your moments, the sensual experience of that moment. And I want you to also kind of really think about, and this was the prompt that I gave them yesterday at the, I didn't even get to recap with y'all. We did the zine workshop yesterday for the Phenomenal Poetry Festival. It was amazing. But one of the prompt that I left them with, after I had them reflect on the memory that I felt like, well, they felt like shaped them the most, I had them also kind of think about what in that memory, what that memory knew about them that they didn't quite know about themselves. So as we're looking back on this reflection that we just wrote based on this simple moment that we spent present, I want you to also think about what truths can be revealed to you about yourself in this moment. In you reflecting on the moment where you said present, what can be revealed to you from looking at that? I'm going to read mine before we go, and we're going to close out because we're definitely over the hour, which I feel like is fine, but YouTube be doing YouTube things, so I'm going to let these people have it. So I wrote about my time in Baltimore last week, and I really tried. Look, I'm a work in progress too, because I really tried to focus in on one specific moment, but for some reason it felt like, and maybe I was just in a state of presence the whole trip, but it felt like the days kind of blended into each other. So that's evident in my writing. I am looking back on my time in Baltimore. There was a slowness to the air, a mellowness that let all the simmering joy bubble to the top of my insides. I felt high. For days, my mornings were peaceful, quiet, unlike the quiet I experience at home. My tea even tastes different. The aromas filling the kitchen, melting into the living room. Hibiscus and rose, florals mixing with the earthy musk of perfume, Egyptian musk, lathered in thin, silky lines across my neck, wrists, and chest. Some days I kept the blinds closed, wrapped in the shades of red from the brick wall and filters of light, white, cascading through the cracks in the blinds. Some days I opened them wide, in every room, light filling the space from the front to the back, windows wide, cold, fresh air rushing in to consume the warm florals and musk. It felt like 3 days blurred into one long immersion. I remember ending my day one night content, in bed nestled under the thick white sheet and feather duvet, back held by the soft pillows behind me, journal on my lap. I didn't have to look for the feelings, they were all there. The words felt so small though, and looking at them on the page now with the time spent set at the backdrop, I can see how much they are missing and how little they understand. Yeah. So that's what I wrote. Because my time in Baltimore was definitely a time, but it felt so ethereal. Like even the flow state I was in, like it felt very ethereal. And I don't know. I don't know. I think that it had a lot to do with the intention that I set for the trip, the time that I wanted to spend doing things that made me feel relaxed, grounded, and not rushed. Like that was a very big part of me going, was because I didn't want to feel the pressure of productivity or the rushingness of, I think what the pressure that I feel being back home and the responsibilities that I hold, which it's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it did really feel good to be able to put that down for a minute and to, I think, feel a little bit more light, to be able to exist in the feel good moments. Like I said, the joy simmered up soon as I got there, and I was ecstatic, like instantly happy. And yeah, I don't remember feeling any different, like any moment. So yeah, looking back on that time, that my mind wanted to go a little bit further back, and it was interesting because it wanted to go to moments where I'm like at the beach or at the park, and I was like, no, let me kind of pull for something that necessarily that I wouldn't necessarily always show up in presence in, because there was a lot going on during that trip, but the way that I feel, like I was still in it, like it's still very fresh in my mind. Like even like I said, the smells in the room, like it's still so fresh in my mind, which for me confirms that I was very much there, experiencing every moment. And I'm glad, because I want to remember the time spent. I do, and I really do hope that the time spent informs my work, informs how I think it is starting to show up and how even the energy that I'm bringing to everything that's followed after, like it's still that very same energy of joy and contentment, but presence, because I want to feel it. I want to feel it. I want to be here in it. So it did carry after, and I'm glad it did. That's our time for today, folks. That's our time for today. I do have a few things I need to share with y'all before we go. Number one, the tea for the month is live on my MAATI'S The tea is live, and also the zines from yesterday's workshop will also be live up there as well. I'm looking for the promo code for this month, y'all. Just give me a second. Here we go. The promo code to get, I think it's free shipping. It's either free shipping or 20% off, one of the two. But the promo code for this month is ZAMI, ZAMI, ZAMI. I did post it in the community tab as well. So if you want some tea, if you are feeling like that is something that you really want to incorporate into this space with me, because I'll be sipping my tea. Okay, I don't know if y'all know this. It's kind of hard not to, but I'll be sipping my tea. So if you also want to invite that into your practice, I always throw a little promo code in there for y'all, because I love y'all. The code for this month and for last month, also for March and for April, is ZAMI. ZAMI, like Audre Lorde. ZAMI, a new spelling of my name. Look it up. Don't cook it up. Okay? And what else? The blend for March and April is Hands in the Soil. It's an ashwagandha-based blend, which is really good for mood uplifting, emotional grounding, and nervous system restoration. Ashwagandha is an adaptogenic herb, baby, so it's going to help you bounce back quicker. Okay? And I am not exaggerating on that at all. It's one of them herbs that you have to... You need to take it over time, okay? Ashwagandha is not one of them herbs that you're going to sit there and be like, oh my gosh, my nervous system is restored, I'm bounced back. No, it's an adaptogenic herb. So the longer that you work with it, the more that it works with you. Now, it's also like any herb. You don't need to take it forever. So once you've taken it for a few months, you should take a break. Take a break. Take a break. Give your nervous system a break. Give your body a break. Let it do its own thing. That's like with all herbs, yeah. So that is a really good blend. And I specifically curated it for these springtime months, because I feel like we were navigating through a lot of heaviness in the winter. So I'm wanting us to bounce back, but also be restored. And what is the word? Have more endurance as we go into the summer. Don't you want to be endurance? Don't you want to have that? Endurance mean that you're able to go longer. You're able to go longer. Yeah. So ashwagandha is, like I said, one of those adaptogenic herbs that's going to help you be able to keep going and not get knocked down and be down for so long. We need you to bounce back. That is available on MAATI'S And next Sunday is Easter, so we won't be on the page. Next Saturday is my birthday, so make sure you come find me and say happy birthday. And I will see y'all the second week of April. And I'm debating if I want to change the day of on the page. Let me know in the comments how Sundays work for y'all. I know people do they resting thing and they cleaning thing on Sundays, so I don't really want to cut into y'all other shit. I know y'all want to be here doing the thing, but I'll be on here just vibing, talking. So I don't want to cut into what you got going on. Let me know if we need to switch the days around so that we can show up here and do our thing in respect of everything else, right? Promo code for the month, Zammy, Tea, my auntie's tea time, zines. And I'll see y'all on the next session. Thank you for coming. And have a wonderful day.